Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Danica Tormohlen. She's the VP Content of Tarsus, now part of the Informa Group, and she has a tremendous experience with the exhibition industry. She's been writing about it since 1994. She went through different crises of our industry, and she has a very interesting perspective of where we're going and how we can use technology. Enjoy the conversation with Danica. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And today I'm extremely happy to finally be able to speak with an icon in this industry. She has been writing about the trade show industry since 1994. She's a journalist. She has been writing for every major association, organization. Today, she's the VP Content of the Tarsus Group, which is now part of Informa. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Danica Tormohlen. Danica, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me today, Eric.
Well, I've been dreaming of having this conversation because you have so much knowledge about our industry. And so we're going to talk about that in a few moments. But first thing first, what is your personal journey?
So sure, I would be happy to share that. I don't think, when you get to know people in this industry, that's really the good part, right? Is that you find out people's journey along the way. So I am a writer and a journalist, like you said, by trade. I went to University of Missouri School of Journalism, one of the top 5 schools in journalism in the country. So go Tigers. Very proud of my education there. And it's interesting because, a lot of people go to school and they don't end up doing what their major is. But I was lucky enough to find a job. I answered a classified ad in the newspaper back in 1994. I know, right? Sounds crazy. And I answered an ad for a magazine called Expo Magazine, and it was based in Kansas City. And I got that job. It was like a grunt position, writing like people news, very simple, easy things. But I fell in love with the industry right away. It's a lot like the trade show industry is a lot like a magazine. It's a magazine come to life. Your readers are your attendees and your advertisers are your exhibitors and your content are the features in the magazine. So it just, what is a great platform. I just love the industry, and I love the fact that it touches every industry, that I get to learn a little bit about every industry and find out what emerging trends there are. And so it's just been a fascinating industry for me to work in. And I've been lucky enough to work for some great people. That one was run by Donna Sanford, and she was the founder of the magazine, and she's still in the industry. And is still a really good friend of mine. Worked for her for 17 years and then went and worked at Trade Show Executive for 10 years with Darlene Goudet over there. And she is phenomenal. She's retired now. I've just been lucky to work with people that have integrity and, that I respect and that I've been able to learn from. And I just have been really blessed in my career.
That's awesome. Now, you've been covering the trade show industry for several years now. What are the main change that you have seen that completely changed the industry or the way you were doing your work for this industry?
Yeah, well, the industry, obviously, it's gone through a lot of different, I've seen it go through recessions. I've seen it go through 9/11, seen it go through now COVID. But what's really struck me is the fact, and even like the digital revolution, right? There was talk when the internet came along, is, a virtual show is going to replace in-person events. And even that discussion happened again during COVID. And as you can see, that hasn't been the case. It just keeps coming back. The need and the want to meet face to face is just so strong. And we're seeing events ramp up dramatically, especially this is really the first full year where we haven't had COVID as an issue, since 2020. And you can see there's shows that are breaking records like ConExpo, ConAg, 140,000 people. I mean, that was incredible. And that's in construction, which is supposed to be having a slowdown in
Right.
2023. So, I mean, that just shows you people want to get back together face to face. So, the resiliency of the industry is certainly something that I have seen. But digital tools and data have really come to the forefront, being able to use those in conjunction with your in-person experience has changed. When I started in 1994, hardly anybody had a website. Obviously now it's way different than it was back then. And so the amount of information that you can get about a show, about products, I mean, people can come to an event and they're ready to go. They're ready to do business, which is a big change from before. So those are some of the changes that I've seen.
That's very interesting. So you say people are now ready to do business. It's a primary vehicle for business. And a lot of people, you tell them, oh, I'm going to this city for a trade show. They go, yeah, you're going to have fun. Say, yeah, I'm going to have fun. But before anything else, I'm going there for my business. And I don't know the percentage, but I know it's a majority of people doing business, people in sales that are requesting their organization to be able to meet face to face with their customers.
Right. That is one thing that has changed for sure is more meetings set up face to face in advance. There's some shows that are doing hosted buyer programs or launching matchmaking tools to match buyers with sellers or interested parties. It doesn't have to be just buyers and sellers, right? It could be, partners that you want to do business with, other exhibitors that you might, want to partner with or want to sell to or want to buy later on. It could also be media, right? You want to set up appointments with media or even hiring people, getting to know potential applicants. So there's many different uses for trade shows that products drive and business really drive it. But meetings, I mean, I'm going to exhibitor show next week. And I mean, my calendar is packed full of meetings. You always want to relieve room for serendipity, right? Like to those chance meetings, like I chance met you, right? At IMAX,
right.
Just talking to somebody else who introduced us. And those are the things that are so great about shows, but adding that layer in of using technology and then also really being able to set those meetings and plan your own schedule and do things. I think that's another trend that I've seen is the personalization and customization of an event to my needs. So you go to your meeting and you do what you want to do, right? You can pick out, you can go to a reception, you can go to breakfast, you can go to lunch, you can go to dinner, or you can do your own thing, for parts of the time. You have your own company meeting along with it, or, there's a lot more flexibility and people are, not going to go and sit necessarily in a large general session and be talked to for an hour. Some people will want to do that, but that doesn't have to be the experience for everybody. So I think there's just a lot more flexibility around meetings today.
Absolutely. Now you're talking about personalization, customization, technology. During the pandemic, everybody's, we're going to do the trade show online. I participated in some. It was a disaster. It didn't work out. But now I was reading a report from McKinsey this week that said that I think by 2030, it's going to be a huge amount of business. We're talking billions of dollars of business being done on the metaverse. Personally, I like the personal contact and seeing the people. What do you see in all the trade shows you're attending in the industry? What do you see and how it's technology actually enhancing the trade show experience, and or could you see that being replaced in the next 10 years?
Well, I don't know about the next 10 years. I wish I did have a crystal ball to tell you what would happen. But what I've seen so far is that since events have ramped up in person, the digital has kind of gone to the backseat. I mean, people are not investing their time in the digital space. Now, I have seen with a virtual trade show, the virtual trade show platforms that came out where you have an avatar and you're walking through a fake trade show floor and you're stopping at a booth and clicking on products. I mean, nobody really wants to do that. That's not a very interactive experience. So, but we are seeing, e-commerce sites are doing well. Like, let's say you have a fashion show where you want to look at all of the products that are, a fashion line that's available before you go to a show. You can do discovery. There's a lot of people who are doing discovery, looking at products before they go, kind of selecting what they want to look at, and then meeting with them on site and maybe closing that deal through the e-commerce, website that they have available. There are plenty of the large for-profit show organizers that are looking into it. And, in some markets it works, like a retail kind of market. So, some things work better in different sectors than others. But, that's kind of what has been working so far, the discovery and then the meeting setup and matching yourselves not only with exhibitors, but also other attendees so that you can,
Right.
meet who you want to meet at an event.
Yeah, very good point. 3 or 4 years ago, I think it was a Freeman booth where they were demonstrating how they were using the data. You could even see where people were moving on the trade show, which booth they were going to, if there were a lot of people at that time on that aisle instead of the other. What do you see in terms of using data, and what should people attending trade show or being exhibitor need to understand and think about when it comes to using the data to do better business?
Yeah, I think that we're going to see more data like that used. It's been expensive in the past. You've talked about, I know what you're talking about in terms of Freeman, that meant setting up cameras everywhere, putting, RFID on every badge. That is cost prohibitive for a lot of events. Whereas today, the technology, the cost is really coming down and people are using their phones. You can use your phones to track where attendees are, to have heat maps, and that's much cheaper, easier. There's a new product. I just was on a call yesterday with Freeman is partnering with a company called Zenus, and they're doing sentiment analysis. So, if you walk up to a booth and what does your face look like when you're looking at, and when you're talking to, the sales rep, or even, one activation here and one activation here, which one is more popular? They said that they tested it already on a couple of different events, and, one was not attracting women. And, so then they started to tweak it overnight. There was like a kitchen. And so they took that away. And, that was like off-putting to the attendees. So being able to, that's the deal, right? Is it's great to have all this data, and you can have all this data today. And you can have it at an inexpensive way, but you also have to have the tech behind it in terms of like the Wi-Fi, which can be a problem. This one doesn't rely on Wi-Fi and using cloud storage. So, there are some factors around that. But, to be able to make decisions on the fly with that data is really, going to be the holy grail, right? To make changes in traffic flows and to your exhibits to draw people, to areas that aren't as, by having maybe a special or, set up a bar, being able to take action on what's going on at the show in real time is going to be great. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we're moving that direction.
I'm listening to you. I can help thinking about the movie Minority Report.
Yeah, exactly. We're not there yet. And for instance, like that technology I was just talking to you about, it is not doing facial recognition or like capturing video of people's faces for privacy reasons. They're only capturing like sentiment, not attaching it to a person. So there's so many rules around it, and so many, especially in the US, people don't, we don't want that at all. We're not going to tolerate that here. Like I was at a show in Barcelona, Mobile World Congress, and they did it again this year. And I don't know if you've been to that show or not. I did hear you interview Christoph from the bureau there, but so they have, what they did is they have facial recognition, and it was a fast lane to get people to upload their photos. And then they could use that fast lane to where they wouldn't have to stop and have their badge scanned. So, you're going to have to put incentives like that for people to want to participate in that, just like social media, right? Giving, you got to give to take.
Yeah, and I was thinking exactly about that because remember, in the 90s, when you had a private journal that you were writing on it every night, if anybody, your siblings, your friends, your parents would try to open it, you're almost going to kill that person.
Yeah.
Today, you're putting everything on social media, and if nobody's liking it, then you're depressed.
Yeah.
And so when,
Yeah.
when you look at the facial recognition, I've been flying, it was Lufthansa once, where you just show your face. And by the way, now with global entry, you come back to the US, I just show my face. It like 5 seconds, and I
Right.
pass
Me
customs,
too.
which is
Yeah.
phenomenal.
And Delta, actually, I was able to check in on Delta with just my face, no ticket at
Right.
all. Yeah.
So I'm more concerned about who can own that data, and other countries
Yes.
can own that data, with what they're going to do with it. But quite frankly, in this day and age, finding the face of a person on the internet, I don't think there's anything easier than that.
Right. Well, and I just shared yesterday I saw something on LinkedIn, and I did share it. It was from Monique Bell with TEDx. And so the thing that they did yesterday is their event is going on this
Yeah.
week, and they sent a personalized email to their attendees with a photo of them that was taken at the event, like the day before. For me as a journalist, I like that. I would love to have a professional high-res photo of me at an event, if it's a good one, right?
Yes.
And to be able to share on social, and to show that you were at the event, it's a nice thing. But I posted it, and some people were, kind of creeped out by it as well. I mean, so some people like it and some people don't. So, it's a fine line to, it's a nice personalization tool. There are so many things that we can be doing now at an inexpensive way, which I'm sure that's through facial recognition. I heard that people walked in to register. They had iPads. They said, "Hi, what's your name?" Pulled it up, had their picture that they had uploaded. They continue walking, and somebody hands them their badge. I mean, so again, what are you willing to trade off to save your time, to, have access to photographs like that, and, register quicker, the convenience factors.
Yeah. Well, talking about that, so you were by trade a journalist from Missouri University, and I love the fact that you say that your reputation is the fact that your content is accurate, fair, balanced, and relevant, and I believe that. Now, in this day and age, with technology, with AI, I've seen a clip on YouTube recently where some politician was making a speech, and then the voice was changing, female, male, didn't matter, of actors, and you would really think that those actors were doing that. How do you look at the profession of journalist, and the profession of creating content as the VP of content, where how can you make the difference in the future with something that is totally fake or something that is actually fair, relevant? What are your thoughts on that? Because somehow it's exciting, but it's frightening at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. So one of my favorite short little phrases that I tell my children and most people that I know is trust but verify, and consider the source that you're getting the information from. I mean, that's what I do, right? I somebody tells me something, I trust them, but then I go and verify it from somewhere else. And I look at the source of where I've verified that from. It is scary. I mean, you're going to be able, like, for instance, I can already do it in Descript. Like, I don't know if you use
Yes.
Descript to edit your podcast, but you can edit them and you can dub your voice in there, and you can type in something, and you don't have to re-record. It will just spit out your voice, and it sounds just like you.
I don't do that, but I
Yeah.
heard about, sorry for interrupting, but on that point, I heard that Joe Rogan had, and it was clearly announced that it was a fake, but
Right.
he had his own podcast. He was interviewed, I don't know if it was Elon Musk or somebody else, but it was totally fake and recreated like that.
Yeah. I mean, and people are going to be doing that. And it is scary to think about. And even if you, I mean, I've used Chat GPT to, I've played around with it. I like to use new technology as much as possible. I want to try everything. I want to, stay current, stay relevant, and so I've been trying it too. I'll throw in like a story and say, write 3 headlines for me just to get some ideas. I've thrown in a bio and said, come up with 10 questions for me. And it does. I mean, it's really, it can be used for some good things, but I will say that, I'm getting ready. I'm going to be speaking at a business editors conference in a couple of weeks. And that's one of my topics, is to talk about, AI and how it could impact the industry overall. I think it can be used as a good as a good tool, but I don't think it's going to replace editors or, writers. You still need, I mean, I've also had it try to, I asked it to do a bio of like me. I said, and I've seen people do it at conferences too, like, put somebody's name in and ask them to spit out a bio. And my bio is completely wrong. It was quite entertaining because, my name is a little bit, my name is pretty unique, Danica Tormohlen. It got the editorial part of it right, but then it said I was like editor-in-chief of like Entrepreneur Food Business Magazine. I mean, I've never worked in anything like that before. And and said I lived in Colorado and, I've never lived there. I mean, so you're just going to have to, use it for what it's good for. But I have seen, there are people right now that are fighting in terms of like the Wall Street Journal, like publishing companies, because of where they're getting their data. And if they're attributing it to, a reputable source, because that really, again, trust but verify. What is that source? And it's not fair either that from a journalist perspective, if I write something and then it's just taken from Chat GPT and then, somebody else uses it somewhere else, picks up the exact, my story. Yeah. And they don't know because it's spit out on Chat GPT. So, I mean, it's really sticky. It's going to be interesting. We are really in the beginning stages. And even on artists, I've heard the same thing. I've been listening to, there's a podcast, the Wall Street Journal has a podcast about AI, and it's fascinating. Just, people can just type in like a style of artist and, artwork that looks like this artist will come out. And, that's not very, that, that the license and the intellectual property rights around that, it's just not fair. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm excited about the possibilities, but also, yes, nervous about some of the ramifications of it.
Absolutely. Now I'm starting to wonder if I'm really talking to you now. Or...
It's me.
You made me think of a book I read recently called Trust Me, I'm Lying, from Ryan Holiday.
I don't know that book.
And I mean, he's been writing many books which are fascinating, but the whole purpose of this book, and he explained of the things that he's been doing in the past, where basically you have bloggers and they are paid by many organization by the number of blogs or by the number of lines that they're writing. And so there is a race to write as many blogs as possible, but you don't have time to verify your sources. And so he used that in the past, I think it was for American Outfitters that he was working with, or something like that, and to launch a book as well with Tucker Max, where basically they identify some bloggers and they manipulate those bloggers in thinking or giving them information that actually were not accurate. But it was then taken by another blogger and then another blogger, and finally it was taken up by mainstream media, and it became a reality which was totally fake. And you can, to your point, that the very exciting opportunities, but in this case, you can destroy reputation of people because you spend your time defending yourself against fake information, but it has been taken by so many blogs and by so many organizations.
Exactly.
It's almost a lost battle.
It's going to be scary. I mean, they're already starting to, I think, figure that out in terms, but how are you going to roll it back, and how are you going to, put parameters on it? It's tough for, you know, government to do that, right? I mean, it's a slow process to get legislation done and to make rules and step back. It almost, we rely, it seems like, on the tech industry to really police itself. And, that is not probably the best way to go about that.
Yep, I agree. Totally agree
Yeah.
with
We're getting into politics, aren't we?
okay. Not on the podcast. The next time we see
Yeah.
each other at the trade show, with great pleasure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's one thing I also would like to have you talk about, which is very important, is the Women in Exhibition Network. And you're one of the co-founders. Okay, if you can tell us why it was founded, what is the mission, and what the listener can do with the Women in Exhibitions Network.
Certainly. Well, first of all, we have a website, Women in Exhibitions Network, and it really is, it's not an association. It is a network for women in the industry. Any side of the industry, trade show organizer, supplier, meeting planner, union labor, if they wanted, any woman in the industry can be a part of the organization. And I just joined the board last month. And so I'm on the North American board, and we have monthly Zoom meetings. So anybody, very inclusive, easy for people to join once a month, the third Thursday of the month at noon Eastern. We have Zoom meetings. And so tomorrow we have a speaker, Ken Holzinger with Freeman, and he's going to be talking about data about next generation event attendees. And so we have a speaker, and then the best part really is the networking around it. When I started in the industry in 1994, I was one of the few females that would, for instance, be at like the CISO CEO Summit, or any of the high level industry meetings. I would be one of less than 5 women in the room. Now there's a lot more women in the room, but there's still that need for us to have a network. Even though, I've been in the industry for a long time. I still want to expand my female network. And the best way to do that is by getting to know other women in the industry. And that's how you can call on them to be able to ask them about, working with another supplier, trusting and verifying, who to work with, and whether that worked for them, and if they like that supplier, bounce ideas off of. So that's really what we've been founded for, to increase people's network. And we are going to be actively doing some mentorship programs. There's no formal mentorship programs really, in the industry. And so to be able to do that, it would be good. I see it as a benefit for myself, and also for the younger generation. I want to support them, but I can also learn from them too. So that is a little bit about our organization. And then we also are launching a global summit this year for the first time. So we're going to have an in-person event. It's a fairly new organization, launched just before the pandemic. We have local meetups meetups in person at industry events. We just had one at the CISO CEO. We've had one at IAEE. We had one at IMEX in Las Vegas. So those we have the online, and then we meet in person to they're happy hours where we just talk and, solidify those relationships. And then now we're going to be having a global summit, and it's going to be in June in the Netherlands.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah.
What is the website for those who wants to join?
So it's Women in Exhibitions Network.
And there's a website, or just
Yes. Yeah. I think it's Women in Exhibitions. If you just type in Women in Exhibitions Network, it pops up.
Got it. Wonderful.
Yes. Yeah.
Danica, thank you so much. It's fascinating, all your experience, what you've been through in this industry with all the different crises, and you keep the energy and learning about it. I just want to ask you one last question for today. When we meet in person in 1 year from now with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to celebrate?
Well, let's see. I know one thing we're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate another 52 podcasts of yours. So you'll be over 200 podcasts. So
Right.
I'm going to be excited to celebrate that with you.
Thank
And we
you.
better sit down with that bottle of champagne. I didn't even really get to talk about this, but I hope that we are celebrating the successful launch of Exhibitor News Network, which is my new baby that I have. It is a media platform for exhibit managers and event marketers. And we just launched it last month, and it is super exciting. I think that, exhibitors are the backbone of the trade show industry. I mean, they are, who pays the bills, right? And they're here to see the attendees and the buyers, but without the exhibitors, there would be no shows, right? So
Yeah, and that's my bad. It's almost when my wife asks me if I'm ready to come, I say, yeah, I'll be there in 5 minutes. And an hour later, I'm still working. So I know I asked you the last question, but this is too important. So let's rewind a little bit.
yeah.
And as a last question, can you
Yeah.
please tell us about that? Because that's also a very important part.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It's so we have a website where we're putting industry news, basically daily industry news, anything to educate exhibitors and help them do their jobs better. There are so many, there's a lot of 10 by 10 exhibitors all the way up to your large double decker booths, from major Fortune 500 companies. But then there's also, it's a great place for entrepreneurs. I mean, almost every business in the world exhibits it at some kind of trade show. So, helping them have a better experience to be able to sell more product, to build brand awareness, to, meet more buyers, anything that can help them do their job better is what we're going to be reporting on. And so I'm so excited to be in this space after, I have all this knowledge on the trade show side, but not serving the exhibitor market. So I'm super excited to help them achieve better success at shows. And we'll have a weekly newsletter that will go out via email. It goes out on Thursdays. We have a podcast that comes out twice a month. And we have social channels. We have, Twitter, LinkedIn,
Yeah.
Facebook, and then we also have a YouTube channel. And I'm looking ahead. I'm like kind of dabbling and looking at maybe doing a Discord channel. Again, I like to stay up to date on, whatever ways that our community wants to get information. That's one of the ways that trade shows and media have evolved, it right? Like, there's no more print, right? Hardly anybody is looking at print, but there's other ways for your community to learn and communicate with each other. And however that is, we want to meet them where they are.
That's wonderful. And I was just reading again, just to make sure, because we've been talking about the Women in Exhibition Network. That's one important thing. And the other thing, which is you've been launching last month, is the Exhibitor News Network, which are two totally different things, but
Yes.
also two very important things. So
They do have network in common. So the women's network is basically a volunteer, group that I have helped form. And that's part of, what I feel like I do to give back to the industry and, to raise women up in the industry. And Exhibitor News Network is definitely all about work. And that is our product at Informa Tarsus, our brand new product that's part of TSNN, which has been around since the very beginning. Over 25 years old, the first, like one of the first websites in the industry, really, and then corporate event news. So we have a great platform of trade show and event products.
wonderful. Danica, thank you so much. How can people reach you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Danica Tormohlen. I'm also on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. I try to put out not only news, but hopefully tips, anything that I see that's interesting that I think will help a show organizer or an exhibitor or an attendee having a better event, I throw it out there. So follow me there. And then we also have our website, exhibitors.newsnetwork.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time today to share all your insight and your experience. And I look forward to seeing you again in person and next industry event.
Thank you, Eric. Can't wait to see you again.
Danica, thank you so much for taking the time today to speak with me. A fascinating career, and I really love all the points you made during this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please go on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group, eventbusinessformula.com/group. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please share it with your network. Thank you. Goodbye.